I discovered the betrayal long before she knew I was watching, but I refused to believe what the evidence made painfully clear. My name is Nelson Griffith, and I'm 43 years old. Each morning, I wake at 5:30, brew coffee in the kitchen of my modest Ohio home, and prepare for another day of contracting work. Noah, my 12-year-old son, is sensitive and protective of his sister. Riley, my 8-year-old daughter, still clutches the stuffed rabbit I bought her before the divorce from their mother, Riza Griffith. My shoulders tensed when I found them alone that night, hungry and afraid while Riza partied. The methodical documentation began immediately. Photos, timestamps, witnesses. My jaw clenched as I realized this wasn't a one-time mistake, but a pattern of calculated neglect. I won't be manipulated by lies or broken by betrayal. There is a difference between vengeance and justice. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I'd been staring at my kitchen table for nearly 2 hours, shuffling through paperwork while the dishwasher hummed in the background. Contractor's license renewal forms, invoices for the Watson job, permission slips for Noah's field trip, the mundane battleground of post-divorce parenthood. My eyes kept drifting to the clock. Thursday night. The kids had been with Riza since Tuesday. Something about the quiet made me uneasy. I reached for my phone, thumb hovering over Riza's contact. No, she'd just accuse me of hovering again. Instead, I grabbed the stack of books from the counter, Riley's dog-eared copy of Charlotte's Web, and the astronomy guide Noah had forgotten. They'd been asking for them. Just a quick drop-off, I muttered to myself, grabbing my keys. 10 minutes, tops. The drive to Riza's apartment complex took 15 minutes, the radio filling the truck cab with background noise I barely registered. The parking lot was half empty when I pulled in. Her unit was on the second floor, facing west, windows dark against the night sky. No lights, not even the glow of the television. A chill crawled up my spine that had nothing to do with the October air. I knocked 3 times. Nothing. I checked my watch. 1:07 a.m. Maybe they were sleeping. But the silence felt wrong. I dug my keychain from my pocket, found the spare key Riza had forgotten to ask for after the divorce. It turned easily in the lock. "Hello?" I called into darkness. "Riza? Kids?" A beam of light swung wildly toward me from the living room. Noah sat hunched on the couch, clutching a flashlight, his shoulders dropping in relief when he recognized me. "Dad?" His voice was small, too controlled for a 12-year-old. I flipped the light switch. Noah squinted against the sudden brightness. Riley lay curled on a blanket on the floor, fast asleep, still in her school clothes. The stuffed rabbit was tucked under her arm. "Where's your mom?" I kept my voice steady, though my heart hammered against my ribs. Noah's eyes darted to the door. She went out. Said she needed a break. "When?" "After dinner. Around 6, maybe?" I checked my watch again. 1:10 a.m. 7 hours. I moved to the kitchen, opening the refrigerator. The light illuminated mostly empty shelves, a half-gallon of milk, ketchup, a takeout container. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. "Did you guys eat?" Noah nodded. "We had pizza. Riley saved you a slice." My throat tightened. I took another picture. The ashtray on the counter, cigarette butts piled high. Then the clock on the microwave. 1:17 a.m. I sat beside Noah and pulled up the hallway camera app on my phone. Riza's building had security cameras. I'd helped her set up notifications on her phone. I scrolled back through the footage until I found it. Riza, purse slung over her shoulder, walking briskly away from her apartment at 6:23 p.m., while the sun was still setting. I tried calling her. Once. Twice. On the third try, she answered. "What?" Her voice was slurred, music pulsing in the background. "Where are you?" I kept my voice low, glancing at Riley. Out. What's the problem? I'm at your apartment. The kids are alone. A beat of silence. Then, they're fine. Don't be dramatic. I heard laughter, glasses clinking. Noah watched me, eyes wide and too understanding. I'm taking them home with me. Whatever, she said. You love playing hero. The call ended. I tucked my phone away and knelt beside Riley. Hey, sweetheart, I whispered, stroking her hair. Time to go home. Her eyes fluttered open. Daddy? Yeah, baby. Let's get you to a real bed. Noah was already gathering their school bags. No arguments, no questions. Just quiet efficiency that broke my heart. I carried Riley to the truck, buckled her in, and helped Noah with the seatbelt. The drive home was silent except for Riley's soft breathing. At my house, our house, I tucked them into their beds. Riley's room was still decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars. Noah's walls had basketball posters and a calendar meticulously tracking his homework assignments. They both fell asleep almost instantly. I sat at the kitchen table again, but the paperwork remained untouched. I replayed Riza's voice in my head. They're fine. The dismissal, the slurring, the absolute certainty that she'd done nothing wrong by leaving our children, 8 and 12 years old, alone until past midnight. Dawn broke outside the kitchen window, pale light seeping through the blinds. I hadn't slept. Headlights flashed across the wall as a car pulled into my driveway. Riza's car. I stood up slowly, my back stiff from sitting all night, and prepared to face the woman who'd once been my wife. The pounding on my door matched the pounding in my head. I hadn't slept. The digital clock on the microwave read 6:47 a.m. when I opened the door to find Riza. Mascara smudged under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Where are my kids? She tried to push past me. I planted myself in the doorway. They're sleeping, Riza. Get them up. We're going home. Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I could smell the cigarettes on her clothes, mixed with something fruity, probably whatever she'd been drinking. No, they're staying here today. I kept my tone even. Her eyes narrowed. You can't just take them. We have an agreement. An agreement that doesn't include leaving our children alone until 1 in the morning. Noah's practically a teenager. He's 12. You're being ridiculous. She crossed her arms. What? You never left the house when they were sleeping? Not for 7 hours without another adult present. No. Riza's laugh was brittle. Oh, look at Super Dad. Never makes a mistake. Always perfect. This isn't about perfect. It's about basic safety. You're so controlling. This is why I left you. She leaned closer, voice dropping. Always judging. Always with the rules and the schedules. I took a deep breath. My rules include feeding our kids dinner and not leaving them alone all night. They had pizza. Her voice rose. Keep your voice down. They're sleeping. Don't tell me what to do with my own children. I stayed quiet for a moment, watching her chest rise and fall with angry breaths. Behind me, the house remained silent. The kids still asleep, thankfully. I've got the hallway camera footage, I said finally. Time-stamped. You left at 6:23 p.m. So what? I needed a break. Parents are allowed breaks. Not overnight breaks without childcare. She rolled her eyes. God, you're pathetic. Recording me? Taking pictures? What kind of creep monitors his ex-wife? I wasn't monitoring you. I went to drop off their books and found our kids alone in the dark. They're fine. Nothing happened. Because I showed up. Oh, right on time to play hero. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. What did you tell them? That mommy's a terrible person? I didn't say anything about you. Riza stepped forward suddenly, reaching for my pocket. Let me see your phone. Delete those pictures right now. I stepped back, hand covering my pocket. No. Give me the phone. She lunged again. I backed up another step, locking the screen. Stop it, Riza! You're trying to take my kids! She was shouting now, no longer caring who heard. I'm trying to keep them safe. She followed me onto the porch, finger jabbing at my chest. You've always wanted them all to yourself. This is just your excuse. I glanced across the street. Mrs. Delgado's curtains twitched. Great. An audience. Exactly what I didn't want. I'm not doing this, I said. I'll let the court decide. The court? She laughed, wild and too loud. You think a judge cares that I went out for a few hours? 7 hours. With no adult supervision for our children. They're my children, too. She was screaming now, face flushed. I shook my head. Go home, Riza. Get some sleep. We'll talk when you're calmer. Don't patronize me. She backed down the steps, pointing at me. You'll regret this. You think you're so much better than me? You're nothing. She stormed to her car, yanking the door open. The engine roared to life, tires squealing as she reversed out of the driveway. I stood watching until her taillights disappeared around the corner. When I turned back toward the house, Mrs. Delgado was standing on her porch in her robe, concern etched across her face. I gave her a small nod. She nodded back before retreating inside. The kids were still asleep when I checked on them. Small mercies. I made coffee and waited for them to wake up naturally. By 7:30, Noah appeared in the kitchen doorway, hair sticking up on one side. Morning, Dad. Morning, buddy. I pushed a glass of orange juice toward him. Sleep okay? He shrugged. Yeah. A pause. Was Mom here? I thought I heard her. She stopped by. I kept it simple. You want eggs or cereal? Riley wandered in a few minutes later, stuffed rabbit dragging behind her. I drove them both to school without mentioning Riza again. Noah was quiet, watching the road. Riley hummed to herself in the back seat. After drop-off, I called Ava Kim from my truck. I need to talk to you about a custody issue, I said when she answered. Today, if possible. Ava's voice was calm, professional. I can see you at 11. Bring any evidence you have. I'll be there. After work, I picked up the kids from my sister Maggie's house. She watched them after school on the days they stayed with me. We had dinner, homework, baths. The normal routine that wasn't normal anymore. Once they were asleep, I sat at my computer and uploaded everything. The hallway camera footage, the photos of the empty fridge, the apartment at 1 a.m. I sent the files to Ava through her secure client portal. At exactly 8 p.m., a knock at the door made me jump. A courier stood on my porch holding a thick envelope. Nelson Griffith? He asked. That's me. Sign here, please. I scrawled my name on his tablet and took the envelope, knowing what it contained before I even opened it. Riza's petition for expanded custody. I set the legal papers on the kitchen table, stomach sinking as I read through Riza's petition. Valentina Penn had crafted her masterpiece with clinical precision. Petitioner seeks expanded custody on grounds that respondent Nelson Griffith demonstrates emotionally restrictive parenting patterns and maintains a rigid household environment detrimental to the children's social development. I flipped to the next page. It got worse. Respondent has repeatedly attempted to alienate children from their mother through inflexible scheduling and refusing reasonable accommodation for petitioner's work obligations. My hands tightened on the paper. Work obligations? Since when was bar hopping a job requirement? And has demonstrated controlling behaviors including documentation of petitioner's home without consent, denying petitioner rightful access to the children. I reached for my phone and took photos of every page, sending them to Ava with a simple message. Just received this. Call when you can. The phone rang less than 5 minutes later. I see what we're dealing with, Ava said without preamble. Penn's using standard playbook tactics, painting you as controlling while glossing over why you documented anything in the first place. She's twisting everything. I paced the kitchen. I left the kids with Riza for 2 years without complaint. I only stepped in when— I know, Ava cut in gently. And that's exactly what the court needs to understand. This won't be quick, Nelson. We need to build our case methodically. How long? Custody modifications take months, sometimes longer. We'll file our response within 2 weeks. but you need to prepare yourself. This will be emotionally taxing. I glanced down the hallway where Noah and Riley slept. I can handle it. Good. Start gathering everything. School records, medical appointments, text messages, photos. Document every exchange, every pickup, every drop-off. If you remember something from the past 2 years that shows a pattern, write it down with as many details as possible. After hanging up, I pulled out my laptop and created folders. I'd always been organized with work projects. Now I'd apply that same discipline here. The first folder, School Records. I searched my email for communications with Noah's teachers, finding dozens of messages where I'd asked about homework, when Riza returned him without his backpack. Ms. Alvarez had emailed me 3 times in the past month alone. Noah seems tired today and mentioned he went to bed late. Is everything okay at home? I forwarded these to Ava, then called the school the next morning to schedule a meeting with Ms. Alvarez. She agreed immediately. Noah's a bright boy, she told me in her classroom after school, but his work suffers when he returns from his mother's home. Assignments incomplete, concentration issues. She handed me a printout of attendance records showing the days Noah had been late, all following Riza's custody days. Would you be willing to document this? I asked. She nodded. Of course. The children's welfare comes first. Next was Dr. Meena Patel's office. She examined both kids thoroughly, her expression tightening when measuring Riley's weight. She's down 3 pounds since her last visit, Dr. Patel noted, making entries in her tablet. Noah shows signs of mild malnutrition. Nothing severe, but consistent with irregular meals. They say they don't eat much at their mom's, I explained. She doesn't cook. Dr. Patel looked up. How long has this been happening? Since the divorce. 2 years, getting worse recently. She made another note. I'll document my findings. This shouldn't continue. Each night after the kids went to bed, I organized the day's evidence. Phone logs showing Riza's missed calls, texts where she'd canceled pickup at the last minute, receipts from groceries I'd sent with the children because Riza's fridge was always empty. I labeled everything meticulously. Dates, times, circumstances. The hallway camera footage went into its own folder, backed up in 3 different places. I printed photos of Riley's unwashed clothes from her last return and Noah's incomplete homework. One night, as I organized these materials at my desk, I felt a small presence behind me. Riley stood in her pajamas, clutching her rabbit. Daddy? Her voice was small. Is Mommy mad at us? I turned, putting down the papers. No, sweetheart, she's not mad at you. But she's mad. I lifted her onto my lap. She's just confused right now. Sometimes grown-ups get confused about what's most important. Like bedtime stories? I smoothed her hair. Exactly. Like bedtime stories and dinner together. Will she stop being confused? I wished I could promise that. I hope so. But until then, you and Noah are going to stay with me more often. Is that okay? She nodded against my shoulder. I like your mac and cheese better anyway. After tucking her back in, I returned to my desk, staring at the growing pile of evidence. This wasn't going to be a quick fix or a simple hearing. This was going to be a long, exhausting war of attrition, one I couldn't afford to lose. Days later, I sat across from Ava Kim in her downtown office, watching as she flipped through my evidence binder. Rain tapped against the window, matching the rhythm of her pen as she made notes. The binder had grown thick, 3 inches of documented neglect that told our story without a single raised voice. This is good, Nelson. Very thorough. She adjusted her glasses, pausing at the photos from that night. But we need more than just your observations. The judge will want third-party verification. I nodded. What kind of verification? Neighbors, teachers, doctors. Anyone who's witnessed the pattern or its effects. She closed the binder. Your neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, right? The one who saw your argument that morning? Would she be willing to provide a statement about what she's observed? I think so. She's mentioned before seeing Riza's car gone overnight. Perfect. And Dr. Patel should document any medical concerns formally. We need to establish a pattern that predates your custody filing. Or Riza's attorney will claim you're manufacturing evidence. I remembered the doctor's furrowed brow when weighing Riley. I'll call her office today. That afternoon, I knocked on Mrs. Delgado's door with a plate of oatmeal cookies. Riley had insisted on bringing them. The older woman welcomed us in, her living room smelling of lemon furniture, polish, and coffee. After Riley scampered off to see Mrs. Delgado's cat, I explained the situation. "Of course I'll help," she said, her voice firm despite her age. That night wasn't the first time. I've seen her car gone until all hours, lights out in that apartment. Once I nearly called police myself, but I wasn't certain the children were alone. She shook her head. I should have done something sooner. You're doing something now, I assured her. Later that week, Dr. Patel's office called. She'd prepared a detailed report noting Riley's weight fluctuations and Noah's occasional complaints of stomach pain from irregular meals. The report mentioned indicators consistent with routine nutritional neglect and sleep disruption patterns typical in unstable home environments. Clinical language that translated my children's suffering into evidence. Mark Hollis, the court-appointed guardian ad litem, arrived at my home the following Tuesday evening. Gray-haired with wire-rimmed glasses, he carried a worn leather notebook and spoke with deliberate calm as I showed him around. "The children will feel more comfortable if you're not present during our conversation," he explained. "Standard procedure." I nodded, retreating to the kitchen while he spoke with Noah and Riley in the living room. I couldn't hear their words, only the gentle rhythm of questions and answers. My hands shook slightly as I prepared dinner. Chicken soup and rolls, comfort food. I wondered what my children were saying, what memories they might be recounting. 20 minutes later, Mark joined me in the kitchen. "Mr. Griffith, your children seem well adjusted here. Comfortable." He made notes in his book. They both described being left alone at their mother's residence. My stomach tightened. "How often?" Noah said more than once. Riley mentioned being scared of the dark when Mommy goes out. He looked up. They both indicated these weren't isolated incidents. I gripped the counter edge. "Thank you for talking with them." "I'll be observing Ms. Griffith's home next week," he added, closing his notebook. "My report will reflect all observations objectively." After he left, I called the kids for dinner. We ate together at the table, Noah describing a science project, Riley interrupting to show me her drawing. Ordinary moments that felt precious now that they were documented as evidence. The following Monday, Ava called. "We've filed for a temporary custody hearing. Judge Keller's reviewing our evidence packet this week. How soon will we know? Could be days, could be weeks. But Nelson, this is looking strong." 3 days later, we sat in Judge Keller's courtroom. Riza and her attorney arrived late, her expression shifting between confidence and annoyance. Mark Hollis presented his preliminary findings. Dr. Patel's report was entered into evidence. Mrs. Delgado's statement was read. Judge Keller, a stern woman with silver-framed glasses, reviewed everything silently before looking up. "Pending final resolution, I am granting a temporary modification. Primary physical custody to Mr. Griffith during school weeks. Ms. Griffith will have alternating weekends, Friday evening through Sunday evening." She fixed Riza with a firm look. "Regular mealtimes and bedtimes are to be maintained at both residences." Ava squeezed my arm gently. A small victory, but significant. That Sunday evening, I tucked Riley into bed while Noah read in his room. The house felt peaceful. No tension about tomorrow's handoff. No worry about missed homework or empty stomachs. I sat in the hallway between their rooms, listening to their breathing grow steady with sleep. My phone buzzed with a text alert. Riza missed her pickup. I opened the parenting app on my phone, feeling the familiar weight settle in my stomach as I logged another missed pickup. Sunday, 6:20 p.m. Mother did not arrive for scheduled exchange. No communication received. I attached the photo of packed bags by the door, time-stamped, and added, "Children remained in father's care. Submit. Document. Breathe." My phone rang 10 minutes later. "Ava Kim. Did she eventually show up?" she asked, her voice calm and businesslike. "No." Radio silence. I glanced at the kids, thankfully absorbed in a board game in the living room. Noah asked if something was wrong with her. I said she must have gotten confused about the schedule. "That was smart," Ava said. "Your restraint is exactly what we need. No accusations, just facts. Keep doing what you're doing." Over the next 3 weeks, I built my case one detail at a time. Every incident went into the app. Tuesday, 8:17 p.m. Children returned without completed homework. Thursday, 3:45 p.m. Riley returned without winter jacket, despite 28-degree weather. Sunday, 7:32 p.m. Noah reports no dinner provided during weekend visit. Riza's responses grew increasingly hostile within the confines of the monitored app. "Jackets are at my house because you don't return things properly. Homework is your job. I'm for fun. Noah could have eaten if he wanted to. Stop making me the bad guy." I never responded to the bait, just acknowledged receipt. Message viewed, jacket replaced, homework completed. Ms. Alvarez emailed me Noah's progress report, noting his improved attendance and participation. "Noah has completed all assignments for the past 3 weeks, a significant improvement from earlier this semester. He appears more rested and engaged in class discussions." Dr. Patel's official report arrived next. Both children demonstrate improved nutritional markers and sleep patterns consistent with regular routines. Riley reports fewer nightmares, and Noah's somatic complaints have decreased significantly under current care arrangement. At home, I established the structure the kids desperately needed. Breakfast together every morning, dinner at 6 sharp, homework at the kitchen table where I could answer questions while preparing meals, reading time at 8, then bedtime routines, the same steps every night so they knew exactly what to expect. The first time Riley slept through the entire night without calling out, I sat in the hallway outside her room for an hour, just listening to her steady breathing. It felt like winning a prize I didn't know existed. "Dad?" Noah found me there, clutching a glass of water. "Everything okay, buddy?" He nodded, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. "I finished that book, the one about the kid who builds a fort." "That was fast," I said. "It's easier to read here." He shrugged. "It's quiet." One Friday afternoon, Mark Hollis showed up unannounced at my door. I welcomed him in, though my heart raced at the surprise visit. "Standard follow-up," he explained, making notes as he observed the children's rooms, the refrigerator magnets holding their artwork, the calendar clearly marked with activities and expectations. Noah was doing math homework. Riley was coloring at the other end of the table. The house wasn't perfect. A basket of unfolded laundry sat in the corner, and dishes from lunch were still in the sink. But it was functional, safe. Mark sat with the kids briefly, asked a few questions, then joined me in the kitchen. "This is the stability they need, Mr. Griffith," he said quietly. "Your home provides structure without rigidity. The children appear comfortable expressing themselves while respecting boundaries." For one brief moment, relief washed over me. Someone else could see what I was trying to build here. Not perfection, just safety, consistency. That night, after the kids were asleep, I opened my laptop to check emails before bed. The subject line from Ava caught my attention immediately. FWD, Discovery Request, Urgent. I opened it to find Valentina Penn's formal request for full discovery, demanding all communications, financial records, work schedules, and personal information going back 3 years. A fishing expedition, Ava called it. I stared at the screen, the blue light harsh in my dark kitchen. This wasn't just standard procedure. Riza was gearing up for something bigger, digging for ammunition. The quiet weeks of documentation suddenly felt like the calm before a storm. I flipped pancakes while humming a tune Riley had taught me from school. The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, catching dust motes in golden beams. Noah sat at the table finishing math homework he'd forgotten the night before. "Almost done?" I asked, sliding a plate of pancakes in front of him. "Two more problems," he mumbled, pencil scratching furiously. Riley bounded in wearing mismatched socks, her stuffed rabbit dragging behind her. "Can Hoppy have pancakes too?" she asked, climbing onto her chair. "Absolutely," I said, cutting a tiny pancake piece and placing it on a separate plate. The sharp knock at the door interrupted our ordinary moment. "Coming!" I called, wiping my hands on a dish towel. Probably a package delivery or maybe Mrs. Delgado returning the casserole dish from last week. I swung the door open and froze at the sight of a woman in a navy blazer holding a clipboard, her expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Nelson Griffith?" she asked. I nodded, an inexplicable dread settling in my stomach. "I'm Diane Matthews from Child Protective Services. I need to speak with you regarding a complaint that's been filed." The kitchen behind me went silent. I stepped onto the porch, pulling the door nearly closed. "What complaint?" She consulted her clipboard. "We've received an allegation that you slapped your son Noah and screamed at your children until your daughter hid from you. I'll need to interview both children and conduct a home evaluation." The words hit me like physical blows. My ears started ringing. "That never happened," I said, keeping my voice low. "That's completely false. I understand this is upsetting, but we're required to investigate all reports. May I come in?" I stepped aside, mind racing. Riza. This had to be Riza's doing. The timing was too perfect after the discovery request. For the next hour, I sat in my living room while Ms. Matthews interviewed Noah and Riley separately in the kitchen. I called Ava immediately, who advised complete cooperation while she gathered our evidence. "We need temporary placement for the children while we assess the situation," Ms. Matthews explained when the interviews were complete. "This is standard procedure. Do you have a family member who could take them for a couple of days?" "My sister Maggie," I said automatically, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "She lives 15 minutes away. That would be acceptable if she agrees." I called Maggie, who answered on the first ring. "I need your help," I said, and something in my voice must have alarmed her. "What's wrong? Are the kids okay?" "CPS is here. Someone," I couldn't bring myself to say Riza's name with the social worker watching, "filed a false report claiming I hit Noah. They need to place the kids somewhere for a couple days while they investigate." "I'll be there in 10 minutes, Maggie said without hesitation. While we waited, I helped the kids pack overnight bags, trying to keep my expression neutral despite the storm raging inside me. I couldn't let them see my fear or anger. "Why are we going to Aunt Maggie's?" Riley asked, clutching Hoppy tighter. "Just for a sleepover," I said, folding her favorite pajamas. "I need to take care of some grown-up stuff." Noah watched me with knowing eyes. At 12, he understood more than Riley did. "Dad," he said quietly when Riley went to gather her toothbrush, "I told her the truth, that you never hit me." My throat tightened painfully. "I know, buddy. Everything will be okay." Maggie arrived like a whirlwind, hugging the kids and giving me a meaningful look over their heads. She understood exactly what was happening without me having to explain further. For the next 2 sleepless nights, I worked non-stop compiling evidence. I pulled time-stamped texts where Noah had messaged Riza that Dad made breakfast, and "We're watching a movie with Dad," during the exact period the alleged abuse supposedly occurred. I downloaded footage from my hallway camera showing peaceful bedtime routines, me reading stories, the lights going out at a reasonable hour. I collected screenshots from the parenting app showing civil exchanges with Riza, with no mention of any concerns about my treatment of the children. Ava reviewed everything, adding records from Dr. Patel and Ms. Alvarez to our defense. Lies fall apart under scrutiny. she assured me. Riza didn't think this through. There's too much evidence contradicting her claims. On the third day, I drove to Maggie's house for my supervised visit with the kids. The social worker, a different one named Robert, sat quietly in the corner while Riley showed me the fort she'd built with Maggie. And Noah demonstrated a new card trick. I hugged them both, breathing in Riley's strawberry shampoo scent and feeling Noah's growing shoulders under my hands. They seemed okay, thanks to Maggie's stable presence, but I caught the confusion in their eyes when I had to leave after just an hour. As I drove home alone, the empty back seat visible in my rearview mirror felt like a physical wound. The radio played softly, but I barely heard it over the pounding in my ears. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. "You picked the wrong man to frame," I whispered to the empty car. Monday morning arrived with first light barely breaking over the horizon. I'd been up since 4, showered and dressed in my best button-down shirt and slacks. Not quite court attire yet, that was for tomorrow, but I needed to feel put together, in control. I arrived at Ava's office before her secretary. When Ava walked in at 7:15, coffee in hand, she didn't look surprised to see me waiting. "You're early," she said, unlocking her office door. "Good. We have a lot to finalize." Inside her office, we spread our evidence across her polished desk. The timeline was rock solid. I'd reconstructed every hour of the day Riza claimed I'd abused Noah. Text messages, emails, receipts from the hardware store where I'd picked up supplies that afternoon, and photos I'd taken of the kids eating dinner peacefully at the kitchen table. "The social worker's preliminary report is promising," Ava said, sliding a document toward me. She noted both children denied any physical discipline and that Noah specifically contradicted the allegation. My shoulders loosened slightly. "But it's still our word against Riza's." "Not anymore." Ava tapped her computer screen. "I subpoenaed footage from Riza's apartment complex yesterday. Security cameras caught her leaving at 6 p.m. the night of the alleged incident, right when she claims she heard you screaming at the kids. She wasn't even there," I whispered, relief flooding through me. "Exactly. And we have your hallway camera showing a perfectly normal evening at home." Ava's eyes narrowed. She didn't think this through. My phone buzzed with a text from Maggie. "Found something. Coming over now." 20 minutes later, Maggie burst through Ava's office door clutching her laptop. "You're not going to believe this," she said, setting it on the desk. "Remember when I got that smart camera to watch Rufus chewing furniture? I never turned it off when you brought the kids over last weekend." She clicked open a video file. There was her living room, mostly empty except for her dog sleeping on the couch. But the audio picked up voices, mine and the kids, from my house next door through the shared wall. "Dad, can I have another story?" Riley's voice, clear as day. "It's getting late, sweetheart. Please? The one about the rabbit?" A sigh, then my voice again. "Okay, one more. Noah, you want to listen too?" Noah's laughter. "Only if you do the voices." Ava's eyebrows shot up. "This is from when?" "Last Tuesday night. The exact time Riza claims Nelson was yelling and hitting Noah," Maggie said triumphantly. "The wall between our houses is thin," I explained. Her camera picked up our bedtime routine. Ava was already making notes. "This is excellent. Unplanned, third-party audio evidence." By noon, Mark Hollis had called to confirm he'd visited Dr. Meena Patel, who examined her records and confirmed that Noah had a regular checkup 2 days after the alleged incident, with no bruising or behavioral distress noted. "Dr. Patel is preparing a formal statement," Mark told me, his voice measured as always. "She's also noting that Noah spoke positively about home life during the appointment. Ms. Alvarez emailed a signed statement that Noah had been engaged and cheerful during that entire week, with no signs of distress or fear. The evidence kept mounting. Hour by hour, Riza's lie was crumbling. By late afternoon, Ava had assembled everything into a meticulous exhibit binder, tabbed, indexed, and cross-referenced. Looking at it, I felt a strange calm replace the panic that had been my constant companion since the social worker's knock. "We're ready," Ava said, closing the binder. "The emergency hearing is tomorrow at 9. Judge Keller doesn't tolerate false allegations. Be prepared. This could turn the entire case." I nodded, suddenly exhausted. "Thank you. Go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow's important." That night, alone in my quiet house, I sat at the kitchen table while rain tapped against the window. The empty chairs where Noah and Riley should be sitting made my chest ache. I opened my notes and began rehearsing my testimony aloud. "I believe in appropriate discipline," I practiced saying. "I believe in consistency and boundaries. I do not believe in hitting. I have never struck my son." The words felt strange in the empty room, but I needed to say them, to hear how they sounded, to make sure they carried the weight of truth. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The storm was gathering strength, much like our case. I closed my notebook and stood by the window, watching lightning flash across the darkness. "Tomorrow, the truth walks in with me," I said quietly to myself. Morning arrived with steel-gray skies that matched my mood. I straightened my tie for the 5th time as I stood outside the courthouse, watching raindrops slide down the brick facade. The weight of what was about to happen settled in my chest like a stone. "Ready?" Ava asked, appearing beside me with her briefcase. "As I'll ever be." We walked through security and down the long hallway to courtroom 4. Every step felt deliberate, like I was walking not just toward a hearing, but toward the rest of our lives. I clutched our evidence binder, my knuckles white against the black vinyl. Through the heavy wooden doors, the courtroom waited. High ceilings, wood paneling, the smell of floor polish and tension. We weren't the first to arrive. Across the aisle, Riza sat beside Valentina Penn. My ex-wife wore a cream-colored blouse I'd never seen before, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She'd dressed for the role of concerned mother, but her eyes gave her away, cold and calculating as they met mine. I nodded once, professional and distant. She looked away. "All rise," the bailiff called as Judge Keller entered, her black robe crisp and imposing. I stood, focusing on keeping my breathing steady. Somewhere across town, Noah and Riley were with Maggie, waiting for the call that would tell them where home would be tonight. "Be seated," Judge Keller said. "We're here on an emergency motion regarding custody and to address allegations of physical abuse. Ms. Kim, you may begin." Ava rose, smooth and confident. "Your Honor, we're prepared to demonstrate that the allegations against my client are not only false, but represent a deliberate attempt to manipulate these proceedings." She walked the judge through our evidence methodically. The apartment complex camera showing Riza's car leaving at 6 p.m., the timestamp on my hallway camera recording a peaceful bedtime routine, text messages from Noah about his science project the next morning. "Furthermore," Ava continued, "we have statements from Dr. Meena Patel confirming no signs of physical abuse during Noah's checkup, from Ms. Alvarez noting his positive demeanor at school, and from Mark Hollis, who interviewed both children separately." Mark nodded from his seat in the gallery. Our eyes met briefly, his expression neutral but somehow reassuring. The social worker testified next, her voice professional as she explained that, after thorough investigation, the report was deemed unsubstantiated. "Based on interviews, medical examination, and collateral contacts," she stated, "there is no evidence supporting the alleged physical discipline." I watched Riza shift uncomfortably in her seat. The facade was starting to crack. Valentina leaned over, whispering something in her ear. Then came our strongest moment. "Your Honor," Ava said, "if I may, we have one final piece of evidence." She connected her laptop to the courtroom speakers. The audio from Maggie's smart camera filled the room, Riley asking for another bedtime story, Noah laughing, my patient voice agreeing to just one more. Riza's face flushed red. The timestamp in the corner of the video matched the exact time she'd claimed I was hitting Noah. Judge Keller's expression remained impassive, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Valentina tried to redirect, arguing that one pleasant evening doesn't disprove a pattern, and suggesting the audio could have been from a different night. But her arguments felt hollow, even to me. When both sides had presented their cases, Judge Keller removed her glasses and looked directly at us. "I've reviewed the evidence presented today," she began, her voice steady and clear. "False allegations of abuse in custody disputes are not taken lightly in my courtroom. They harm children, waste court resources, and undermine legitimate cases of abuse." I held my breath. "Based on the preponderance of evidence, I am granting Mr. Griffith's petition for sole legal and physical custody of Noah and Riley Griffith, effective immediately." My heart hammered against my ribs. Ms. Griffith will be permitted supervised visitation twice weekly at the Family Services Center until she completes a court-approved parenting course. Additionally, I'm imposing sanctions for filing a demonstrably false report and ordering Ms. Griffith to pay Mr. Griffith's attorney's fees related to this emergency hearing. The judge continued outlining details, visitation schedules, payment timelines, but I barely heard them. We'd won. My children were coming home. As we filed out of the courtroom, Riza caught up to me in the hallway, her face twisted with anger. "You think you've won?" she hissed, keeping her voice low enough that only I could hear. I met her gaze evenly. "No, I've protected them." She stared at me for a moment longer, then turned and stormed down the hall, her heels striking the tile floor with sharp, angry clicks. The sound echoed and faded, like the last word of a failed argument. Wednesdays were for math homework and spaghetti night. 3 weeks after the court ruling, our routine had settled into something that felt almost normal. Noah sat at the kitchen table, pencil tapping against his textbook as he worked through fraction. Riley had claimed the other half of the table, pink tongue poking between her teeth as she concentrated on her drawing, something with a rainbow and what might have been our dog. "Dad, can you check this one?" Noah pushed his paper toward me. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and leaned over his shoulder. "Looking good. Just double-check your denominator on number 7. He nodded seriously, returning to his work. The quiet industry of the moment hit me square in the chest. This simple piece had been so hard-won. "When's our appointment with Ms. Brooks?" Riley asked, without looking up from her masterpiece. 4:30 tomorrow, I answered, stirring the sauce. "Right after school." Elena Brooks had become a steady presence in our lives. The court-appointed therapist specialized in helping kids navigate family upheaval, and twice a week she met with Noah and Riley, sometimes together, sometimes separately. Last session, she'd told me something that still echoed in my mind. They're talking about feeling safe now, not about feeling scared. That's progress. My phone buzzed with a notification from the Family Center app. Riza had missed another supervised visit, her 3rd this month. I swiped it away without comment. The reports from the center were consistent. When she did show up, she was often late, cutting into her already limited hour. Sometimes she brought gifts that violated the guidelines. A tablet when electronics weren't permitted. Candy when we'd specifically mentioned Riley's sensitivity to food dyes. I'd stopped reacting to these updates. They were just data points now, not emotional landmines. Earlier that day, Ava had called to confirm the wage garnishment paperwork was finalized. Riza would be paying back my legal fees in monthly installments directly from her paycheck. "It's not about the money," Ava had reminded me. "It's about accountability." She was right. The financial recovery mattered less than the principle. Actions had consequences. After dinner, I drove the kids to Maggie's house. My sister had been our rock through everything, and her weekly movie night with the kids had become sacred tradition. "How's everything going?" she asked, handing me a coffee while the kids raided her DVD collection in the living room. "Steady," I replied, and the simplicity of the word felt like victory. I never properly thanked you for the smart camera footage. Without that audio, don't mention it. She squeezed my shoulder. I'm just glad those babies are where they belong. On the drive home, Noah asked quietly from the back seat, Is Mom coming to my science fair? I met his eyes in the rearview mirror. If she completes her parenting class, she can apply for special event attendance. We'll see, okay? He nodded, looking out the window. No disappointment, just acceptance. Kids adapt faster than we give them credit for. After bedtime stories and goodnight hugs, I stood in the kitchen updating our chalkboard calendar. Tomorrow, school, pancakes, bedtime. The ordinary rhythm of our days was its own kind of medicine. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Riza rescheduled Thursday visit to Saturday. I closed the app without feeling anything but mild acknowledgement. No anger, no triumph, just the quiet certainty that we were moving forward regardless of her choices. I poured myself a final cup of coffee and walked the perimeter of the house, a habit I'd developed during those uncertain weeks. Everything secure, everyone safe. Pausing in the doorway of their shared bedroom, I watched my children sleep. Riley clutched her stuffed rabbit. Noah sprawled with one arm flung dramatically across his pillow. Their breathing came deep, and even in the soft glow of the nightlight. Remember when they were babies? How you'd stand exactly like this, just to make sure they were still breathing? Some parts of being a parent never change, even when everything else does. Morning arrived with sunlight filtering through the blinds. School day, packed lunches, normal life. As I locked the door behind us on the way to work, and school drop-offs, I whispered words that had become something of a mantra. We're safe now. Riley looked up, catching my words. I know, Daddy, she said simply, slipping her small hand into mine as we walked to the truck. And in that moment, I realized that justice isn't always loud proclamations or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's just this, the quiet certainty of a door that locks, a routine that holds, and children who no longer flinch at unexpected sounds. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.